Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me this evening, I should say, this afternoon, I should say, on all of the platforms, Rumble, Odyssey, uh, Locals, X, the Red Pill Journals, the Red Pill Diaries. And I just like to thank each and every one of you for giving me your time, seriously. And I think we might be streaming on uh, uh, something else. Twitch. That's what it is. Twitch. So, um, I've been watching the news lately, and people have been asking me about my opinion of what transpired. You know, I don't get involved in politics like this. I just tell you my opinion, and I tell you, and I try to present facts. Okay, about what's going on, especially with what took place over these last few days. Okay, and I've been listening to a lot of different pundits give their assessment on what transpired at the Republican rally with Trump, and I stayed silent purposely. Well, because first of all, when you're not sure, I mean, when you don't know, it's best not to speak. Okay, a lot of people need to learn that. Not for views, for clicks, or for something like that. Sometimes it's just best not to speak. All right. Now, um, but I've been getting hit by a lot of questions asking me, hey, so what do you think about this? So yesterday, I was watching Larry Johnson and his guest, the former FBI um, agent, what is it, Sniper. And they gave some really good information on what they believe took place. I was also watching different platforms on their um, opinion and their take on what took place. Now, I'm not going to delve too deep into this. I'm just going to tell you what an investigative journalist or a detective would do. And they would say motive, opportunity, and who benefits. Now, when we do those three there, we can somewhat put aside conspiracies or whatever, and we can come forward with some logical assessments. And the logical assessments may not be the facts, but they will lead you down the pathway to facts. Okay, and that's something that we should do. Don't let anybody shame you into not doing a thorough analysis of the situation. I don't care if you're pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-Biden, anti-Trump, anti-Biden, pro or anti-American, pro or anti-Western. I don't care. Don't let anyone shame you on that. Okay, because a rational person, a logical person, a sane person, an informed person would want to use the same metrics that a detective would use to solve crimes. And one of the metrics that they use is motive, opportunity, and who benefits the most, right? So I had a hard time, and I have to be honest with you. I had a hard time believing that the cameras would capture a bullet zooming past the former president and it hitting his ear and missing him like I'm gonna be totally honest with you about that. I had a problem with that. But and I'm gonna tell you why. It's because of Walt Disney. America is the king of deception. All right. Now, why would I say that in concerning? Am I saying Trump is involved? No, 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 no. Don't mistake what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in recent days, Israel was being condemned globally for willfully, and knowingly telling Palestinian civilians to evacuate cities to go to that safe zone once again. And once the safe zone was received these people, Israel bombed the safe zone. Okay. On top of that, the U.S. and the Ukraine racked up more losses. on the battlefield and on the political field and on the economic field. And then when we look at the state of America's economy, it's nothing but bad news. I don't care how you put sprinkles on a turd. It's still poop. Right? So all of these things coming at the empire. And then we have a political season that is going on that is supposed to determine the direction of the country. With all of these secessionist movements out there, it needed something, an event that could drive together a movement of people that had a certain way of thinking. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that Trump in any way had or did not have a part in this. I'm saying that some's fishing. Some's fishing. And I can't put my finger on it, but some's fishing. And I have a track record. But when I say something's fishy, even when everybody else says everything to the contrary, that 97% of the time, I'm right. I'm right. And I'm telling you, something just does not make sense with this. And I know about the people telling the police that a guy was climbing the building, he had a rifle, he walked through a field, he did all of that stuff. Excuse me, besides all of that. We already know that, according to the latest polls prior to that, that Joe Biden was a quote unquote, and Secret Service, I'm not literally talking about this, I'm just figuratively talking about this, was a dead man walking when it comes to the presidential elections, right? Now, Joe is crazy as hell, but he's not stupid. And I don't think that he would, in front of a crowd and media and all this, order that. Maybe he would. I don't know. But I know that it looked Walt Disney to me. A lot of that stuff looked Walt Disney to me. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, when I say Walt Disney, you know, Disney, the channel Disney and Disney World, you know, the make-believe. The make-believe. I have a problem. See, there's a conspiracy that says that this was done to rejuvenate and jolt patriots and all of this stuff together. You know, I was looking at something my colleague Scott Bennett wrote, and he was, matter of fact, let me pull it up real quick, okay? Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. You guys give me a second. Scotty, let's see, Scotty. Did I have it here? I thought I had it. Let's see if it's on here. Well, did I pull it up? Hold on, everybody. I can pull it up for you. Hold on one second. I hope I can pull it up anyhow. Scott Bennett made a couple good points. And now Facebook got me blocked. Hold on one second. All right, here we are. I thought I could put it up. That's the video. Scott, post. All right, here's the link. Scott, share the link, Scott. All right, there we go. That's what he sent me. Okay, Scott talked about that. Come on. Hold on one second, everybody. Scott Bennett talked about the shooting, right? And he said either this was a bungled assassination attempt, and he went on to talk about all of that. Then he said, or we cannot dismiss the fact that this could have been Kabuki theater. This is what Scott Bennett, and the reason I brought Scott Bennett name in this is because I actually have his number personally. I mean, his personal number. And he and I have conversed on several subjects. And I've interviewed him multiple times. As a matter of fact, my interviews with Scott Bennett is what got me suspended off YouTube a lot of the time. He and Jim Fetzer. And Scott was the head of the U.S. psychological warfare program in the U.S. Army. And he says that this could be kabuki theater because we know that this is what America wants. And he points out stuff like the losses in Ukraine, the losses to America's prestige, the economic situation, the meltdown that's going on, the secessionist movements, and all of this stuff like this could all have been a part of kabuki theater. Right now, I want to ask a question, and I'm not going to stay on this subject. I'm going to leave this to marinate. The shooter missed a former President Trump by a hair, right? Because as the bullet was coming, he turned. Do you believe that? I'm asking everybody, do you believe that? I'm not saying it in a way to make if you believe that sound crazy, or if you don't believe that sound crazy. I'm just asking a legitimate question. If this guy was a sharpshooter, and he was able to be what is it, a sniper, do you believe that luck, chance, and all of that came all together, and as the bullet came, he turned? I'm asking you that, and I'm going to leave it on that with you all, and we'll talk more about this maybe later or something like that. But I'm just asking, and I'm trying to provoke thought. Now, we must remember this before I stop on this subject, that America's economic situation is deteriorating faster than you think. I was reading an article where multiple trucking companies are laying off thousands of people. Now, you know what that means? I think when most people see that, they don't understand the level of despair, the level of destruction that is going on in the economy. The truckers, along with the trains and the cargo planes, are the ones who transport goods to and from. They are the ones responsible with bringing stuff to your stores. So if trucking companies right now are laying off people so that they can get their bottom line under order, so that they don't default on debt to the banks, what sign is this towards the economic situation of America? And what does that say about the near future of America's ability to feed herself? Huh? I'm asking. There are so many ominous signs that are going on across America. Salute Univerified Bear from the UK. Shout out. Anyway, I got to give a shout out to Random. No, I always mess up his name because he was the first person in the building. But again, what does this say about the U.S. economy? Huh? And if, as all of the metrics states, that the economy is in a tailspin and is spiraling down, and then you see the designs that America and NATO had to reinforce dollar supremacy and hegemony being broken by the Russian armed forces in Ukraine, and being broken by the actions of resistance across the Middle East, specifically and especially in occupied Palestine and Lebanon and in Syria. And if you see that desperation is forcing her to then pivot herself after losing and constantly losing on the battlefield, to pivot to the most powerful adversary that she could face, which is the Chinese. This shows you the level of desperation in the halls of Washington, Brussels, London, Paris, Berlin. It shows you. And when a person becomes desperate, they will do anything to try to stave off certain death, especially when you've been in a power of the position of authority and power for so long. These are all things that we have to take into consideration when we look at the theatrics that is going on now in America. Some people still believe that Trump is the savior to America. And I'm not an anti-Trump person. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm just telling you. As who was it? Kevin Barrett says, Professor Kevin Barrett says, and then other people brought this up. There's a council. As a matter of fact, when I had who was it? Craner. When I had Craner on, he even went to that and said, people, there's a group of people that control the presidency, and even Putin brought that up, that when you bring these people on the campaign trail saying what they'll do and what they won't do, and then they come into office, they're met by men in black suits. And these men in black suits tell them what they won't do, what they can't do, right, and what they will do. There's a council, or what is called the deep state, or the powers that be behind the scene that does that. And Kevin Barrett went a step further and says that there is no way that you would get to the presidency if they did not pre-approve you. And if you got in the presidency and tried to do something, they would kill you. Now, we know that there was a lot of promises made, and Trump got in the presidency, right? And I used to hear from Colonel Douglas Macgregor about how all of the people around Trump stopped Trump from being able to do this and this, and they sabotaged it. Now I hear from Mr. Macgregor that it may not matter if Trump gets in, because blah, 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 the policies, this and this and this. See, after they get a whiff of this, they start to understand. You understand? So whether Trump is president or not is immaterial. What I'm saying to you is that what just took place recently looks like Kabuki theater, right? With all of the theatrics, with the blood coming down the ear, with the Secret Service rushing him and then jumping on him and then taking him off stage. Am I talking about conspiracy? Well, everybody that makes a statement on this without facts is conspiracy. Even those who are very well versed in the tactics of the Secret Service, the FBI, and the CIA, if they have no inside information and they're speaking just on their experience, guess what that is? Without information on what's happening, that's conjecture or conspiracy, right? So we all have our salute to Joel Joel Bradford is in the building. So we all have our so-called quote unquote conspiracy. I'm just saying something didn't look right. Something didn't look right to me. All right. And you cannot discount that maybe the powers that be has come to a deal and they wanted to galvanize people around him. Right. And so this was one of the best things to do. You never really know. Unified, game over. Unified, Univerified Bear. I'm sorry, Univerified Bear says game over. Listen, people don't realize this. America has become desperate. The UK has become desperate. When I say America, I often have to say the UK because people who haven't heard the show before, they may think that if they haven't heard the show before, they may think that I'm just speaking about America. But America is an empire. But people don't realize that it is part of the quote unquote British Empire. So most times when I'm speaking about America, I'm also speaking about the UK or vice versa, because these two are one and the same, especially in policy, warfare, and everything else. All right. And that's why let me put this up here. That's right. Right here. The Five Eyes. That's right. All of the Five Eyes are what? They are part of the British Circle. Right. I would call it part of the British Union Jack. Okay. Never forget that. America's the muscle. Britain is the mother. And the other ones are to be used too. All right. So, again, this Kabuki theater, I cannot go with they're selling. Excuse me. I can't go with what they're selling. I just can't. It's too many holes, too many flaws in there. And maybe somebody could talk to me and make me believe their perspective. But right now, I'm not buying what they're putting out. Okay. So now, this also happened at a time where Russia and China were holding war games together. China was also about to hold war games, which have started in the South China Sea. And at the same time, China sent warships. Listen to me good. Warships off the coast of Alaska. This didn't make the news. Why? Huh? Why? The United States was so taken aback by the Chinese sending at least four, could have been more, at least 4 warships into what America deemed as her exclusive economic zone, that they rushed warships out. And here's the kicker. Now, all of this is happening simultaneously with what is going on with the so-called Trump assassination attempt. When the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. warships contacted the Chinese ships that were in America's so-called exclusive economic zone, and they asked the Chinese what they were doing, the Chinese responded, "We're conducting freedom of navigation." When I heard that, I was weak. I was laughing because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So the Chinese were pulling an America on America. How America is always in other people's territorial waters saying that we're exercising freedom of navigation. The Chinese did the same thing. And why didn't that make the news? I bet you some of you didn't even know that. Probably most of you didn't even know that. That the Chinese sent warships into America's so-called exclusive economic zone. Now, all of this is happening. The empire is being taxed. People don't realize that. The empire is under duress. And when you're being taxed and you're under duress, and you're not able to sleep, rest, or think straight, what happens? You make bad decisions. Right? In your mind, these are rational decisions. But everybody from the outside looking in see that you are irrational, and the decisions that you continue to make are irrational, unsound, and insane. Is that not right? I'm just talking to everybody. So now, on top of all of that, the newly elected president, or the president-elect of Iran, then comes out and says, China and Russia supported Iran through its tough times. Tehran values their friendship, and Tehran will stand with Russia and China. Isn't that something? In the backdrop, Israel moves to assassinate Hamas leaders after asking them for talks. And at the same time, they bomb civilians in Lebanon, and then Hezbollah reacts and bombs military positions in Israel, occupied Palestine. Do you see how things are starting to snowball? So desperation is setting in. And on top of that, let us not forget that the Houthis have the Red Sea and the surrounding waterways under constant threat of bombing anybody that's delivering stuff to Israel or U.S. and British warships or transport ships. Man, I'm telling you, this is a hard time for America. All right. Let's see. Unverified. I said Unibear. It's unverified bear. I'm sorry. Unverified bear. They do it with aircraft all the time too. We exercise our right to fly jets near Russia, but when Russia does the same, it's threats and brinkmanship. That's what I've been saying for the longest. But let me tell you something, unverified bear. That thought, that language there of threats and brinkmanship and provocation, it has now seeped into the minds of most of the average people because they bought into the propaganda of the Western media and the Western military machinations, right? So it's not hard to convince most people that Russia has been belligerent if the United States sends warplanes, or if Britain sends warplanes, or if NATO sends warplanes that are acting as if they're about to bomb St. Petersburg, or they're flying close to Russia's airspace, and Russia sends up a Su-34, or Su-27, or a S-35 or something like that, and Russia confronts it. Even if Russia does it in an aggressive way to say, hey, stay away from our airspace. The media reports it as Russia being aggressive, Russia being provocative. And the people takes it hook, line, and sinker because they have become accustomed to being spoon-fed propaganda. And there is no excuse today because with everything like information at the touch of a finger, you could pull up this information, you could read this information, you could access this information. When I was growing up, we had to go to the library, look in the card catalog, go up and down aisles to get books and to look at and to check out certain films to look at if you were able to check the film out. Today, everything that can be done on a computer can almost be done on a phone. So for them not to look up this information, for them to be entrapped, and instead something must be wrong up here. Something traumatic must have happened to sections of the population where they cannot process what is actually going on. So this is how the elite continues to rule. Again, I go back to something that I said earlier, right? I go back to something I said earlier in another show. When it concerns the elite, in their minds, the dumbing down of the masses is brilliant. It's good. Why? Because right here, right now, because they have no thought and no vision for the future. It's good, right? Because it helps me reinforce my power. It helps me reinforce my position. So to dumb the people down through propaganda and lies, I just got disconnected off locals. Right here. Anyway, we'll keep going. Let them do it. And while I'm talking about disconnected off locals, if you go back to my page, you'll see I've lost at least 30 subscribers, something like that, 40 subscribers in the last day or so. YouTube. And you're still not going to get me down, YouTube. So check this out. Because they have this desire, this unquenchable desire to rule, to dominate, to impose and enforce their thoughts, their vision, in their so-called reality on the masses of the people, they believe that dumbing down institutions of learning and to inundate the minds of the masses with propaganda and innuendo is the best thing to do to save the republic, to save the empire. But they don't realize that education is what civilizes us. And if you don't have a proper education and you look into the inner cities and you look into the suburbs and you look in all across America and you see the savagery that's going on, that is a direct result of the propaganda and the dumbing down of the masses of the people, because they don't have the proper guidance, the proper education, which then makes them revert to savagery. And then you start screaming and crying about crime and murder and rape and all of this stuff. And at the same time, the people who are responsible for it are the people in the suit and ties who are directing national policy. They can't fund a Head Start. They can't fund a high school or a middle school. But you can always find money for war. You can always find money for cost overruns on outdated weapon systems to the tune of billions of dollars. To dumb down the masses is to lay thermite and nuclear bombs at the base of your society. They don't realize that. They don't understand that, because all they are concerned with is power and position at the moment. How in the hell can you have a progressive, successive society when everybody is dumb as hell? When people can't tell you in America, 50 states and the territories that America occupies around the world. Right, unverified bear, it's a controlled demolition, mentally. You want to remain the power. You're jealous of China. As China graduates millions of people with doctorates and BSAs and all of this stuff on a yearly basis, millions. And then you're having a high school problem with people dropping out because they cannot, not that they don't understand, but they cannot come to grips with what you're teaching them, because reality is telling them something else. So they're dropping out because the message that you're giving them and the education that you're giving them has been downgraded and has been made less than third world nations. And you're talking about staying the superpower. You're looking at everybody else's house, and your house is filthy. You're telling Iran, and you're telling Lebanon, and you're telling Syria to sweep up their own house. And you became a hoarder. How in the hell you think that's going to work for you when you can't get around your own house? Because you're dumbing down the masses of society. You see a culture war, a race war. All of this stuff is going on because you have hidden the truth. And then not only have you hidden the truth, but you've given them something in replace of the truth that causes the divisions and causes the alienations, which is, as Unverified Bear says, is a demolition of the mind. And then you want to scream about the rule of law. How about you pay attention to the rule of law? Because it's a trickle-down effect. The reason people in America have become so violent is because the American government showed them the way. Ask the countries around the world. Ask the people up from slavery. Ask the indigenous. Ask anybody. Ask the Ukrainians. Ask the Georgians, the Syrians, the Libyans, the Malians. Ask everybody. The example has been set for the people. Unified Bear says China 500 million people. No, Unified. Unverified Bear. No, not 500 million. Check this out. Let me put this up so the people can see it. Oh, Pedro is in the building. Hasaya, shout out to you. Let me put you up here. Pedro. And now let me go back to Unverified Bear. Let me put this up. Unverified Bear says China, 500 million people raised out of poverty in 25 years. No, it's much bigger than that. 850 million people. The statistic says 850 million people raised out of poverty. And then America talks about dictator Xi. Do you understand how many people that is? Do you understand how many people that is? That is almost the equivalence of the population of Europe and the United States and Australia. China raised nearly 1 billion people out of poverty. And you want me to believe that your way of life, excuse me, water bottle fell, excuse me, that your way of life, that your way of governance is the right way. They say lead by example, right? Well, China is showing an example of how to alleviate poverty. They're showing it by an example of how to become an industrious, independent nation, right? What is America showing us by example? How to get in everybody else's fads, how to try to dominate everybody else, how to try to impose upon everybody else your will. Oh, you must be a democracy. Who the hell says that? Where does that say that when you come into the universe? When you're born into God's universe, where's that written down in the laws of science that you got to be a democracy? Huh? And for America to always scream about democracy, she acts more fascist than she does democratic. Huh? Why won't anybody talk about these things? Let's call an ace and a spade a spade. What we're looking at is the burning down of a house. See, we see the politicians in Washington, they're smokers. And they've lit a match. And they're smoking their cigarettes, but guess what? Without regard to the house, they toss the match, not knowing that it's flammable substances in the kitchen. And while they're in the living room smoking, the kitchen is burning up. This is an example of America. This is an example of the UK. This is an example of the Western world. And it is always everybody else's fault. None of them are adults. Isn't that what children do? When anything happens, it's never their fault. It's always that person and that person and that person's fault. You in America, you demand other people, ethnicities, and groups to stand up with accountability. Yet the American government never accepts responsibility and accountability for her rational, insane policies of destruction, occupation, and war. How the hell are you going to tell somebody to own up to something when you never do? Never do. It's China's fault. It's China's fault that China won't let us subject them. It's Russia's fault for not allowing us to take Ukraine and take their $12 trillion in wealth. Isn't that what Lindsey Graham said? We need that $12 trillion. Right? It's Russia. It's Syria's fault for trying to defend its independence. It's Iran's fault for not allowing us to subjugate it. It's Hezbollah's fault that it won't allow Israel to dominate it. It's the Palestinians' fault that they refuse. Even after 50 to 60 years, they refuse to let Israel and America and the UK wipe their history away. It's their fault. Never the fault of the aggressor. Never the fault of the aggressor. That's the child. That's the mind of a child. It's your fault. Your fault. Your fault. Isn't that right? The mind of children. This is absolutely insane, and somebody needs to call it out. Right? No accountability at all. So, when you look at this in real time, what I just said, this shows you why the empire is suffering. This shows you why there's a gravitational pull away from Western dominance to the global South. It shows you why nations are stepping outside of UK and US dominance. There are no grown-ups in the house. The children have the run of the rooms. And they point the finger at everybody. I was listening to something and I was shaking my head because it was being repeated as if it was true by the so-called media, right? It's China's fault. NATO says such and such and such. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up, okay? Let me see. Hold on, give me a second, please. Let me see if I can pull it up. China, NATO. Let me see if I can pull this up. Because I want you to, I think this is it. Man, I tell you what. Let's see. I gotta put this up there. I gotta put this up there in a second. This from Unverified Bear. I gotta put this up here. Unverified Bear, absolutely. They hate you for your freedoms. Isn't that what they use? That's one of the mantras, right? All right. Raphael says, what if the psychopaths believe they are about managing animals? Why would pathocratic predators not dumb down those they reject as made in the image of God, then cull the herd to a number they control? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what they're trying to do. They believe, listen, they believe that they know better than God. I'm serious. I'm not joking. How do I know this? Because people, listen, people set examples, right? And you can know the tree by its fruit, right? If you go and pick up an apple off a tree, you don't have to say that's a pear tree. When you bite, even if it looks like an apple, when you bite into it, you say, oh, this is an apple tree. If you go to a pear tree, you'll know that it's not an apple tree when you bite into it, even if you think the pear is the apple. When you bite into it, you'll say, hey, that's a pear, that's not an apple. So how do we know that these people think that they know better than God? Before I go into the China thing, let's examine this. Right? God gives you, they change and alter everything from God, right? In all the holy scriptures, it talks against same-sex and all that. But America is sanctioning Uganda, sanctioning Zimbabwe, sanctioning nations that are against same-sex marriages. Now, what business is it in America that those nations implement laws that they deem crucial to their society and their culture? What the hell is it in the America's business or the UK's business? Huh? So you want me, on the one hand, you say you're a Christian nation and you reject those principles, and then I embrace these, even if I'm a Muslim nation, or I embrace these principles, and you sanction me? So you're not trying to make me into the image of God, you're trying to make me in the image of you. How do I know that? Let's look at the food. God gives you all this beautiful food. What happens? They go and genetically modify it. It's never good enough. The natural is not good enough. They got to go genetically modify it. God gives you water, the thing that sustains life on any planet. That's not good enough. That's dumb water. We come up with smart water. These people are lunatics. I keep telling you this. They are trying to mold and fashion everything in their image and in their likeness. Isn't that what they said Lucifer would do? I'm asking. Right? And I will build me a kingdom like unto the Most High. Isn't that what Lucifer said? That's what they're doing. And they're trying to impose it upon everybody, every living creature. And if you reject it, you're aggressive, you're a tyrant, you're a dictator, you're a regime. You're threatening our core values. What are your values? They can't even tell you what their values are. Our democratic values, right? So your democratic values allow you to overthrow a democratically elected president, Yanukovych. Your democratic values allowed you to put into operation a coup against the democratically elected and former, the late president, Robert Mugabe. So democracy doesn't matter with that. It only matters when you say it. Man, if you don't stop this foolishness, stop this. And they are so greedy for profit that they charge you for the things that God gives you for free. They charge you for soil. They charge you for solar. The sunlight. Think about how greedy you got to be to charge somebody for sunlight. They charge you for water. They are so greedy for profit that they now charge you for air. In the United States, to get air in your tire is $2 to $3. $2 to $3 to put air in the inner tube. What God gives freely, they charge you for. These are sociopaths. You understand? Raphael says, democracy, quote unquote, democracy is their code for British imperial. Man, let me, before I read it, bow. This is a mic drop moment. Quote unquote, democracy is their code for British imperialist financial oligarchy. They care not if the house burns, thinking they can both survive and relocate the cancer. Raphael, this is what we do on the show when you have such a poignant point. Boom, mic drop moment. That's what you did. You gave us a mic drop moment. Order comes from the horde, from horde. Let's see. Raphael also says, psychopathic racial personality traits may include more than delusions of grandeur. Pedro says, and Pedro is in the UK also. Pedro says values that let kids cut. Oh my God, Pedro. Here we go with another mic drop moment. You guys are awesome. Boom. Pedro 58er says values that let kids cut off their body parts because a seed has been planted in their heads that boys can be girls. And let's see, let's go a little bit. And Unverified Bear says they aren't British. The way the Vatican isn't Italian and DC isn't America. Hey, they gaslight nations. That's how we get war. You better believe it. They gaslight us into war constantly. They have no state. Listen, let me read something to you. Let me go to something real quick, okay? I think this is it. I think this is the one. All right. I hope this is it. This is from Wang Yi. I think the three best statesmen. Some people say the Indian foreign minister is one. I think he's real good, but I think the three best statesmen are, without question, Sergei Lavrov, Pandor of South Africa, and Wang Yi of China. I think these three are heads and shoulders above all of the statesmen out there, period. These three statesmen are the best from Russia, South Africa, and China. I believe so. All right. But this is what Wang Yi says. This is what this article with Wang Yi says right here. The title of the article, which was published July 12th, says China slams groundless allegations. Right. And the article reads like this. Foreign Minister Wang Yi has responded to the military bloc's claim that Beijing is shoring up Russia's defense industry. Now, stop right there. Now, why would Wang Yi respond to that? It's because of the lies and the propaganda that America and the West continue to put out. Which, if I was Wang Yi and if I was the Iranian delegation that always is trying to refute the United States, I'll tell them to go to hell. How are you going to see? This is what I'm saying. This Orwellian stuff that goes on with the West. China is shoring up Russia's defenses. Aren't you shoring up Ukraine's? China is helping Syria. Aren't you helping Israel? China has a new naval facility in such and such. Don't you have over 5,000 facilities around the globe? Speak to me when we're on parity with that. I'm not going to go back and forth with you. I'm going to lay the facts out. And the facts may be slow to ride, but when it gets on the horse, it gets it down, baby. It gets it down. You may look as though you're winning in the propaganda war because propaganda is fast, swift, and it gets the attention of the people. But lies will never prevail over truth. Never. That's not how things are made. So listen, Foreign Minister Wang Yi has responded to the military's bloc's claim that Beijing is shoring up Russia's defense industry. So what if they are? What if Wang Yi would have responded and say, so what? Didn't you help South Korea build up its industry? You're the #1 arms seller in the world. So that means that you are showing up other people's defense industries, right? So shut the hell up. Screaming about what I'm doing. Why are you in my business anyhow? Be a grown man and mind your own business. See, people won't talk straight to you. People won't talk straight to you. I will. Even if I have to alienate you by telling you the truth. I don't care about the subscribers. None of that. The most pertinent and most important thing is truth. And sometimes the truth comes out. It might not be palatable. But when it gets down in the stomach and start working, all right, you'll know it. All right. So listen what it says. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has hit out at NATO for making groundless accusations after the bloc targeted Beijing in his declaration at a summit in Washington this week. In the document adopted by NATO members on Wednesday, the U.S.-led bloc alleged that China has been working with Russia to undercut and reshape the rules-based international order. Stop right there. Stop right there. China has been working with Russia to undercut and reshape the rules-based order. That's true. That part there is absolutely true. Because anytime, whether you're doing it knowingly or unknowingly, anytime when you're going against lies with truth, anytime when you're trying to be more just and more fair, especially in a world that exploits, it undercuts the people who do the exploiting, the exploitation, and it undercuts the people who tell us the lies. And if the lies and the exploitation is the basis of that rule or that order, of course it undercuts it, right? And yes, China and Russia are strategic allies. They say they are closer than allies. They're brothers. That's what they said. So of course they'd be working together. Isn't America working with Britain, Germany, France, and the other NATO alliance members to try to maintain their so-called rules-based order? So why are they crying that somebody else is trying to make their own order? Who gives them the right to put in place their thinking, their way of order, their way of living, and their way of governance and finance? Who the hell says it's right for the rest of the world? Listen to me good. Let's see if it's right for the rest of the world. All one has to do is do a litmus test on this. Look at what their so-called rules-based order has pushed the world to. You saw the show with Trump. You see the show with Biden. You see what's going on in Ukraine. You see what's going on with the former colonial powers getting kicked out of Africa. And Joseph Borrell saying that Africa belongs to us. Arrogant racist man. And now we look at the policies of America and the Western world, and they have pushed the world to the brink of thermonuclear war. Who the hell wants an international order where you are under the gun of nuclear threat constantly, under the gun of war if you disagree with your fellow nation, under the gun of sanctions when you disagree or you befriend somebody else outside of the dominant nation? Who the hell wants to live in an order like that? Huh? And when we measure that, we put the metrics up. It justifies the removal of that order and the bringing in of something more just, more fair. Unverified Bear, I'm going to put that up there. And this is what he says right here. I missed a few of your posts. It's going down real quick, but I saw this. It says, we exported all manufacturing to China for profit and now claim China is a monopoly. No. Serious question. Have we ever fought an enemy that we didn't create? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is what the West does. To justify plundering the resources of the world, to justify occupying nations around the globe, to justify overthrowing government and the bombing of civilizations, they come up with enemies. Whenever a nation does not want to willfully give over their resources, it becomes a regime. As a matter of fact, let me go to something real quick while we're talking about this. Let's go to something that goes right in hand with this. See, unverified Bear, you pushed us to do this. So we're going to go to something, okay? A couple of clips. This is going to be about Zimbabwe, okay? It goes hand in hand with this. This shows you the maniacal thinking of the West, okay? And since we're on this is what I needed to go to. Remember, I was telling you on my show, when I gave you why Zimbabwe's economy collapsed, because they never tell you the real reason why in the U.S., in the West. They often tell you mismanagement by Zimbabweans, meaning in so many words, what they're trying to do is say those blacks or those Africans can't govern themselves, okay? And I told you this was totally insane. And I gave you all the real reason why the economy collapsed and why the currency collapsed, okay? And so last night while I'm reading and doing some studying, I just so happened to put in some words in the search engine, okay? I put a few words in the search engine. Give me a second. Let me see something. And this, you can put these words in the Google search engine, okay? And I put these words in and it'll come up to you. I said, in the 1980s, the U.S. and Zimbabwean dollars stood at parity, because I was telling you guys that, right? And I kept telling you that. And someone asked me about that. They say, are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. But listen to what this says right here. Let me pull up something real quick, okay? To show you that what I was saying to you was absolutely the truth, okay? I'm going to show you what I said to you was absolutely the truth. I didn't make anything up. Let's see if it'll allow me to get on here now. What in the world is this? Hold on one second, everybody. Now it's talking about I got to sign in. Now I'm telling you this. Man, I tell you, you guys are something else. Listen, come here. Let me see. Let me go back. Let's see. On Chegg, Chegg. All right. Chegg. I'm going to put this up on the screen for you all. Give me a second. I'm going to put this up on the screen. See, I prove what I'm saying to everybody. I don't make this stuff up just to sound important. When I tell you something, if I say a source told me this, it's because I have connections. Now, they can be wrong or they can be right, but I'll share it with you. And when I tell you something about history, it's factual. You may not have known it, but it's factual. So listen, I'm going to go to something real quick. Give me 1 second with you all, okay? Let's go to share screen. All right, we're going to share this screen. I'm going to pull this up. This should be popping up on your screen in a second, okay? All right. I can't see. There it is. I can see it now. All right. You see that on your screen, okay? It says, question. In 1980, one Zimbabwean dollar was worth $1.47 in US dollars. By the end of 2008, the exchange rate was $1 US to 2 billion Zimbabwean dollars, right? Right? So that's what it says right here. I told you that they stood near parity. And what brought this about, where it flipped so drastically? Okay, what brought that about? That flipped so drastically. We're going to learn that in just a second. Okay, all right. I want you to bear with me. Okay. So listen, I'm going to play 2 short clips. About Zimbabwe. All right, I want you to bear with me. Why am I doing this? Africa is also a place that needs to be focused on. On top of that, you'll see that the lies that they spread about the mismanagement of the Zimbabwean economy and that the people who actually formed the farms could not form the farms. Man, these people are crazy. I want you to think about what I just said. All right? They had you to believe that the people who were farming the farms, right, and who were conducting day-to-day business for the farms, once the farms were put in their hands, could not do what they were doing when they were the workers on the farm. Propaganda is something else. And they inundate the people with this to make you think that the economy was mismanaged. And then they pay people who want position and who want the quick buck to say something different. But I want to play something for you guys, okay? So bear with me. Remember that quote up there. Let me go back to it on my screen. In 1980, one Zimbabwean dollar was worth $1.47 in US dollars. By the end of 2008, right, the exchange rate was $1 to 2 billion Zimbabwean dollars, right? All right. Now, listen to what it says down here. It went on to say, when an economy experiences rapid increases in the price level, such as what occurred in Zimbabwe, the economy is said to experience deflation, inflation, stagflation, or hyperinflation. That's what it says, right? Now we're going to find out why it experienced those things. All right? Pay close attention.
Zimbabwe has lashed out at the US over recent sanctions imposed against the Southern African country's president and also other senior officials. Zimbabwe says the restrictions are completely unjustified.
Zimbabwe takes great exception to gratuitous slander and defamatory remarks by officials of the Biden administration against the sanctioned Zimbabwe leadership and its nationals. What adds to the outrage is that these bald and damaging accusations are not backed by any iota of evidence. We condemn these malicious statements as completely uncalled for, as defamatory, provocative, and as a continuation of wanton hostilities against Zimbabwe by the U.S. government.
Well, Washington has accused the Zimbabwean government of backsliding on democratic processes as well as human rights abuses and corruption. It froze assets and entities pertaining to the country's officials in the US. The new restrictions add to a more extensive list of sanctions that have been imposed over the past 2 decades. This is how the US Embassy in Zimbabwe commented on the new measures.
The targeting of civil society and severe restrictions on political activity have stifled fundamental freedoms, while key actors, including government leaders, have siphoned off government resources for personal gains.
Well, we spoke with international relations analyst Kudzai Matutsi, who said that Washington puts pressure on states with false accusations, using them as a pretext for sanctions.
The accusations from the US are just an extension of their usual rhetoric. If they want to sanction you, they find something to say about you, and then they use it as a justification of their actions. They never provided evidence. They have never tried anyone in a court of law. they have never convicted any of those people in a court of law. In fact, their hypocrisy was exposed this week when they removed hundreds of people and companies that were on the sanction list. Zimbabwe did not do anything. Zimbabwe did not fulfill any of the conditions that they gave. Those people did not show them anything, but they were removed. It shows that they just do things arbitrarily. There is no method to it. It's just cruelty. It's just coercion. If we check Zimbabwe's death rates in terms of gunshots, in terms of violence, in terms of any other kind of crime, they are much lower than the United States. Zimbabwe has never invaded any other country. Zimbabwean police have never shot, or they don't have a record of shooting civilians or killing civilians. It's not there. But the United States and all its human rights abuses is standing as a policeman of the world. For more than 20 years, Zimbabwe has been under sanctions. So it is quite ridiculous for everyone. But they might be doing it as a way of getting to our allies like Russia and China. It might be their way of trying to force us into their wings and remove us from the Chinese wings or from the Russians who are our allies. It could be their plan.
Now you see, going back that statement up there, this is why the Zimbabwean dollar collapsed. This is why the Zimbabwean economy collapsed. It was not because of ineptitude and dumbness by the masses of the people. It was not that. It was because of US and UK sanctions on Zimbabwe, as I told you before. They gave you a different story, but the reality is the United States and the UK has been sanctioning Zimbabwe, and the real reason they did it is because Zimbabwe got its freedom, because it was called Rhodesia after, what's his name, Cecil Rhodes. You know, the mass murderer who left a foundation to bring people in and give them money to get certain degrees and stuff and be called Rhodes Scholars. Zimbabwe fought that, and Zimbabwe didn't gain. Listen to me good. With all this democratic value talk, do you know that Zimbabwe didn't gain its independence to the 1980s? Do you know that? And Britain was still trying to impose upon Zimbabwe its rules and regulations and ways. Did you know that? So let's talk about democratic values. And let's go to something. America sanctioned Zimbabwe, sanctions China, sanctions Russia, sanctions Iran for its so-called undemocratic ways and undemocratic values, right? They say Iran is a theocracy. So too is Britain. Let me say that again. So too is Britain. Why isn't it under international sanctions? Because it has a democratic parliament, right? But it has a king now as the head of state. And the king has what they call the royal prerogative that can sit down governments, not just in the UK, but in Canada, and in New Zealand, and in Australia, and other former subject places. How the hell is that democracy? Huh? But we're going to learn the real reason. Another one of the real reasons why they're after Zimbabwe and they're upping the pressure on Zimbabwe. Okay, so pay close attention to this.
Zimbabwe has lashed out.
We are doing what we are doing
Wait 1 second.
to ensure that our local currency does not die. As I said, we were already in a situation where almost 85% of transactions are being conducted in US dollars because our local currency was not living up to the function of store of value.
The idea is here for the Zimbabwean economy to try and find a new form of currency. As many people may be aware, maybe they're not at home, but Zimbabwe has been under very brutal sanctions for decades now. And those sanctions have really obliterated their own currency, the Zimbabwean dollar. I mean, there's even a 1 trillion Zimbabwean dollar note. That's how bad it is.
Our viewers may know Zimbabwe experienced catastrophic drought. I think some 2 billion worth of agricultural crops have now been destroyed, and that's devastating the country. Plus, as you mentioned earlier, we had the Western sanctions. But moving forward, I mean, does it have enough gold to support it?
Well, the short answer to that, Murad, is yes. Zimbabwe has large amounts of gold reserves still in the ground in the country that haven't been prospected yet. As this new sort of multipolar world, starts to exist, we're seeing a lot more collaboration with the Zimbabwean government, Zimbabwean businesses, with countries like Russia, like China, like India, that are coming in and helping them to exploit those resources. So they already have a lot of gold reserves, which have been sanctioned, which means they've not been able to export them. But now, hopefully, we can see a lot of other countries come to the assistance of Zimbabwe and help them to exploit more of those reserves for their own people, rather than just sending them out to Switzerland or wherever, where they don't get used by anyone in Zimbabwe.
A lot of the people a lot of Zimbabweans, I think have they felt inflation hit them hard?
Oh, absolutely, Murad. I mean, if you speak to anyone from Zimbabwe, they've all suffered through inflation. They've suffered through the years of sort of going out alone, really, a bit like the Cubans, we could say. They went out alone. They said, we're going to do things our own way. We're not going to bow down to pressure from the United States. And they said they're on their own. But the country, like any country, after decades of sanctions, we can see this with Iran. We can see this with any country like this, Russia now. After sanctions, you kind of adapt to it. So the Zimbabweans actually have an economic plan that they work towards, sort of kind of like the Saudis and the Chinese do, which they've built over the next 10 years, which is to sort of reinvent their economy. But of course, naturally, Murad, this is a developing country, so there are problems still that exist. But, with the help of their friends that are now coming to their assistance, hopefully this is going to be a thing of the past very soon for them.
I'd like to sort of link it a little bit to the politics. Do countries like the United States use these sanctions perhaps to cripple countries just because they're not getting it their own way?
Absolutely, Murad. That's the entire point of it. We've seen that time and time and time again. The United States put sanctions, they tell all of their allies not to trade with the country, and they try and isolate them. Now, in the rules-based order world of the US, which has existed probably up until about 24 months ago in its dominant form, that was possible. But now, with our multipolar world order, with the advent of BRICS, with the advent of all of these new economic unions that are happening, it's hard to see how they're going to be able to keep up with this.
So did I lie to you guys? I told you the truth. I told you. Forget what they were propagandizing to you guys. I told you that it was the sanctions that broke Zimbabwe's economy, not ineffective leadership, not ineffective policies. It was because that Zimbabwe, they wanted to reappropriate the land that was stolen. And Britain was against it, fully against it, because I think it was 3 to 5%. I think it was 3. I could be wrong, but I believe it was 3 to 5% of the populations of Zimbabwe held 97%, 95 to 97% of all of the farmland and all of the industries and everything. And this 3 to 5% were holdovers from colonialism. And Mugabe wanted to right that wrong. And Britain was against it because they were one of the beneficiaries of the siphoning off of the gold, siphoning off of the diamonds and all of the resources. And they were getting discounts on the farm produce that were being shipped. And they were adamant against this. And so with America, they devised a plan to bring the Zimbabwean economy to its knees and then blame Robert Mugabe. They do this. Listen, this is a cut, paste move by Britain and the United States everywhere. Everywhere. This is not something new. And I'm trying to inform you of all of this that is going on. And listen, this is what this article, I'm not going to read the article, but this is what this article said. And this is another reason why they have even intensified. Remember, they said they were sanctioning Zimbabwe because of Robert Mugabe. Well, the great Robert Mugabe has passed away and gone with his ancestors, right? And yet they have intensified the sanction regime against Zimbabwe. But they're not sanctioning the areas where they siphon off like diamonds and stuff like that, right? For a little bit of nothing, they take the diamonds and the gold, take it back to Europe, refine it, and then sell it at enormous profit back to the people that they took it from. So listen, this is why they have upped the sanctioning on them, okay? The article came out March 15th, right, of last year. So a lot of you missed this. And the article is titled, Zimbabwe Poised to Ditch US Dollar in Trade with Russia. Yeah. Remember in that clip I played where the guy says, maybe they're doing this to go after us because of our allies, Russia and China? Doesn't that go hand in hand with this title of this article? Huh? So what I'm trying to show you is the desperation of the empire and how they lie so much and how underhanded and backstab. This is something in America's fall, in Britain's fall. This is something that's going to be talked about for centuries, because it's absolutely insane when you're losing your position, when you're losing your power. Common sense tells you not to antagonize the people who may prevail over you because they have resources and riches untapped. You may want to make friends with those people on your way down so that they can cushion your fall and help you back up. But not with American Britain. They are so psychotic with this stuff that nothing matters but right now. I must dominate. I must control everything. I must dictate policy. What did Joe Biden say when he wasn't rambling? America must lead the world. Who said that? Where is that enshrined in the creation of the universe? Where is that enshrined at birth that America or the UK must rule or must lead? We've been in their leadership for well over a century or two. Look where we have arrived. The threat of thermonuclear war. Do you still want that type of leadership? Listen to what a little bit of this article says. Settlements between the countries could be arranged in local currencies or gold, a senior lawmaker has suggested. Now stop right there. That's why the president of Zimbabwe and the central bank president introduced the gold-backed Zimbabwean dollar so that they can do trade and commerce with nations outside the US and the UK. And they don't have to worry about the losing of the purchasing power of their currency because they have enormous amounts of gold and diamonds, and they're going to back their currency, this new currency, with that. This is a no-no. So the United States has intensified sanctions on Zimbabwe and the surrounding areas that trade with Zimbabwe. Is that democratic or is that fascist? Talk back to me because I'm talking to you. Talk back to me because I'm talking to you. As a matter of fact, this is not Zimbabwe, but this is Scott Bennett. I talked to you about him earlier. I'm going to play a clip of him that I played before. And he's going to give you the download on why America continues to deploy troops to Africa and what America's plans really are. Now, remember when I tell you about Scott, and I have to call Scott, but Scott Bennett was the head of the U.S. Psychological Warfare Program. All right. And I've had many talks with him on camera and behind closed doors. So we're going to play a clip from RT. All right. And he's going to give you the skinny, the lowdown, the in and out of the real purpose of Western troops on the continent. Check this out.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the African continent because it appears U.S. authorities are still hopeful that their ties with Niger may be salvaged. Now, this comes as the West African country has ordered all American soldiers to pack up and leave.
We'll make the most of the situation that was presented to us, but the intent is in Niger to draw down to a level that the Nigerians can live with.
More than a decade ago, America began to increase its military presence in the region. And the $100 million American drone facility in the country's north houses around 1,000 personnel. In March, Niger terminated its military relations with Washington. Nigerian officials explained their decision, stating that the deal was imposed on the nation and does not serve the interests of the people. This past month, authorities from both countries began arranging the evacuation of American soldiers.
You mentioned that we were forced to leave Niger. We will leave Niger, Senator, but as you know, what we do in order to, terrorism thrives in ungoverned spaces. And what we typically do is to try to help countries develop their own capability to control their sovereign spaces.
It's never about raising Africa up or doing low-intensity conflict or counterterrorism. It was always about feeding the empire. And Africa has finally overthrown that enslavement and has sought to cleanse themselves of this control. And now you see the West panicking and desperately trying to negotiate any way to stay in Africa so they can continue their nefarious activities. There's nothing good that the United States brings to Africa whatsoever. And I think they realize in Africa that Russia is a far better friend and partner because they are genuinely interested in the elevation of Africa. And I would say this too, Africa, well, the United States contractors and military that are in country, that are on the base, are running out of food and medicine and supplies because they've established no flights coming in and out. This is an opportunity for a public relations victory for Russia as far as I'm concerned. That's how I look at it. And I think keeping the West out, stopping any military presence from coming in is a very wise move because they do not have any designs to help Africa, only parasitically exist off of it.
Demonstrations against the presence of American troops have occurred often around the country. Hundreds rallied in Agadez, home to the UAV Airbase 201, to demand that Washington's military leave. The protests were coordinated by a coalition of parties that back the military rule of law that took power last year. Kala Karamu, a former Nigerian ambassador, believes that if the United States wishes to engage with Niger, it must consider the interests of the people.
The position of the Nigerian people and their leaders has been very clear. We never said that we would not negotiate with anyone. We have never identified with whom we're going to negotiate and on what basis. We have a problem of our own and we want to solve this problem. That is to say, we want to ensure the security of our territory ourselves, and we want to have partners who are ready to respect the conditions under which we want to establish this cooperation. If the United States of America decides to revise its copy and adapt it to the necessities or needs of the Nigerian people, obviously we will discuss that. But there is a principle that is immutable. We don't want foreign troops on our territory. This has created so many problems for us. The fact is that no country, regardless of our ties with it, has the right to come and settle on our territory without observing the agreements defined by our Constitution.
I'm asking, did I lie to you guys? I told you this stuff. And now you have articles and you have pictorial and video proof of what I said. Now, other people, nobody else told you that stuff. Why? Why did they go along with the government line? I'm talking about the alternative media. Why did not they address those issues? Because these issues are so pertinent and they go along with what is going on right now in Ukraine. They go along with what is going on right now with China and with Iran and what's going on in West Asia, or what they call the Middle East and North Africa. This is very important that you understand these things, so that you can connect the dots and see the bigger picture. Not just in the Middle East, or not just in Ukraine, or not just in Latin America, or not just in Asia, and not just even in Africa. But when you connect the dots, it gives you a bigger picture. You know how as a kid, they had the dots that you had to connect. And as you started connecting more and more dots, you started seeing the shape of whatever that thing was, whatever that picture was. But without connecting the dot, you couldn't really understand what the picture was. You could see part of it, but you couldn't really make out truly what the picture was. And once you connected the dots, you said, oh, that's what that is. Well, that's what we're trying to do. Connect the dots to give you all of the available information so that you can make an informed, educated decision on what you should do to preserve your life and the lives of your loved ones. Listen, I want to thank y'all for joining me today. I want to say this. Please don't get off right now. Let me say this to you all. Carl and I, Carl Zah, are working on a time tomorrow. I think we're going to try to do it at 6 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. Carl Zah. That's my little daughter's favorite guest on the show. So I got he and I, Carl, that's my guy there. We're going to try to do it. And then the following day, we're going to have Turkish journalist and historian Tariq Amar on here. So you guys got to show your support. You got to hit the like button. Please listen. I'm trying to beat the algorithm. Every time I get 50 to 100 subscribers, YouTube takes 49 to 99 subscribers. Please subscribe. Check your notifications. Check. It doesn't hurt. And some of you who may not agree with me, let's be an adult. Let's be adults about this. We can be agreeable to disagree. Let's just have dialogue. From dialogue, you can build. And I'm asking you to please share, like, and subscribe, and tell others. If each and every one of you bring 2 people and subscribe, 2 extra people, that'll go a long way. Not just on YouTube. Subscribe to on YouTube. Subscribe to on Twitter. Subscribe to on Rumble. Subscribe to on Odyssey. That'll go a long way. We've got to do this together because we're fighting against the powers that be. And I have the same quality of guests that the shows that have 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 subscribers have. As a matter of fact, a lot of the guests I have on first. So I'm asking you all to just check my resume. Go look. You'll see that a lot of the guests I've had on before. So it's because of respect. There's a respect factor because they understand that I'm telling the truth. Gregory Manarino came on my show when I had 2 subs because he said he respected me telling the truth and he respected the way that I told him. Straightforward to the people without chasing, a straight drop to you. And this is what I'm going to give you each and every time God allows me to breathe and come on here to talk to you all. Because when you love your family, you want to tell them the truth. You don't want to tell them anything that will hurt them. And I want you to be empowered to escape what's coming. And what's coming is going to be all hell breaking loose. On that note, I go out the same way that I always come in, with love in my heart for each and every one of you who loves truth. But know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that my God has for you, the true and living God. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true. But above all things, stay righteous. Like, subscribe, and share. And bring 2 new subs on each platform. Go to our locals page, which is the empowermentoftruth.locals.com. Subscribe so that we can have informed conversation over there. When we get another 25 subscribers, we're going to have multiple live streams over there on a weekly basis. Go over there. You can subscribe to my Patreon. That's patreon.com/The Red Pill Diaries. Become a channel member. Please help the movement. I love each and every one of you. Let's go out the way we came in. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all for joining me from the bottom of my heart. We're out of here. Peace.